In this video, I want to talk about how we were able to get a marriage-based green card approved for 10 years with almost no bona fide relationship evidence at all. And I'm not making this video to brag about the situation, but because I wanted to highlight some important lessons I learned from this case. Under normal circumstances, you don't want to file a marriage-based green card application without lots of bona fide evidence. It's generally not a good way to do things, and I don't want to give you a false impression that you can get your case approved with very little evidence. Okay, that's just not what you want to do. But it highlights the importance of quality over quantity in terms of documentation and evidence. It also highlights the importance of really digging into the particular facts of your case and being able to present it to the immigration service in a way that makes sense and that really humanizes your situation. Okay. So our client had already been approved for a 2-year conditional green card. All right. It was a marriage-based green card based on a marriage to her U.S. citizen husband. And she had received the 2-year conditional or probationary green card, right? Which you always get if your marriage is under 2 years old when your green card gets approved. Okay, so this client had a 2-year green card and she was up for her removal of conditions. Unfortunately, the marriage had gone sideways and they divorced before that 2-year condition had expired, which put her in a very precarious position where she had to file the removal of conditions solo. Right? Normally, you need to file that removal of conditions jointly with your with your spouse, right? The person who petitioned for you. However, the law does permit you to file a solo 751 if the marriage broke down and the marriage was bona fide or it dissolved because of some kind of abuse or battery or some cruelty that happened, right? So the immigration service isn't going to expect you to stay in a marriage if you're being subject to cruelty or abuse. However, it does, like I mentioned, it does put the applicant in a precarious position because it makes the immigration service kind of automatically suspicious as to whether or not that marriage was bona fide from the beginning. So that's the situation we were in with our client. And she really had no bona fide evidence. I mean, they had almost nothing. They had filed like 1 year of tax returns together, but we didn't have any pictures of them together. I didn't have any travel reservations where they had gone on trips. I didn't have any pictures of them, going out, spending time with family. They didn't have children in common. There was really nothing to work with. They didn't even have bank statements in common. They didn't share the bank account or any kind of financial obligations whatsoever. It was a very challenging case in terms of evidence. However, after speaking with the client, we were able to determine that the marriage really was bona fide at the beginning. But the difficulty wasn't just proving it, okay? And so what we were able to do is we just had to rely on the fact that they filed joint taxes together, and we got some extremely detailed affidavits from friends. Okay, not family members, but friends who knew them as a couple, but also from our client, the applicant herself, and we even were able to get an affidavit from the ex-husband. And that is what really carried the day, I believe, in getting this case approved. Because what we were able to do is we were able to humanize the situation and explain it to the immigration officer in a way that helped show that the marriage really was bona fide, but there were just some unusual circumstances that prevented them from having some of the normal evidence that you would have in a typical marriage-based case. In this situation, the marriage broke down because the husband admittedly was unfaithful to the wife. He'd been cheating on her and had been trying to hide it and being dishonest with her until it just got to such an extreme point where our client, even though she was in a vulnerable immigration situation, just had to take a risk and leave that relationship with the hope that she would be able to resolve the immigration situation on her own. So we were able to do that, even though we didn't have a lot of the typical types of documentation and evidence that you would use in a marriage-based case. So I think the lesson that we learned here was if you don't have a lot of evidence, that's not necessarily the end of the world. The important thing is quality. You want to present quality evidence to the immigration officer, and you also want to get in for an interview if possible. Request an interview. If you don't get assigned an interview, try to request one, because if you can get in front of a human being, that is so much more powerful than just submitting documentation, back and forth. It's really important that you humanize your client and get yourself in front of an immigration officer if it's possible. If you're confident in your case and you know that your situation is bona fide, but you're just struggling with getting the documentation, do everything you can, especially if you're working with a lawyer. Get get in there for an interview. It's actually a good thing in situations like this if you can get in front of a human being and kind of force the immigration officer to see your humanity and your situation. And many times that works out way better than just submitting paperwork back and forth because, like I said, it forces them to see you as a human being and not just, a piece of paper or an A number, for example. So that's what we were able to do. We were able to just put together really high quality affidavits, a little bit of bona fide evidence, and get in front of an immigration officer to explain the situation in person. And that was able to carry the day for her. She got her removal of conditions approved again with like almost no evidence except for her well-written testimony. Again, I don't want to give you the impression that that is a normal case. That's not typically what you would want to do, but it highlights good communication between a client and the lawyer, right? Because good, transparent communication can help your lawyer identify good ways and good strategies to figure out how to get a case approved that might not look good on paper. And the story also emphasizes the importance of quality evidence over just quantity. So I'll just stop there. If you're having any issues with a removal of conditions or a marriage-based green card, I want you guys to call me. I'd be happy to talk through your case with you and answer any questions you might have. We do a lot of these cases every day. We're very accustomed to lots of different issues. We've seen probably just about everything you can imagine. So nothing really surprises us anymore. So if you have any questions, please reach out to us and I'll be happy to talk to you about your green card application.